before Africa was divided, before borders were drawn, before names were changed and maps were rewritten, there was already a world in motion. Cities rose and fell. Gold crossed deserts. Ideas traveled oceans. And history was being written, not in silence, but in stone, ink, and memory. Yet today, when Africa's past is mentioned, it is often reduced to a single image, an image of absence, of simplicity, of a continent waiting to be discovered. But that image is not history, it is a myth. And tonight, we begin uncovering the world that existed before it. For centuries, Africa's past was framed through a narrow lens. This was a story told not by those who lived it, but by those who arrived later. European explorers and colonial writers often described Africa as a place without history. It was seen as a land of tribes, not civilizations. It was seen as a land of villages, not cities, of oral memory, not written knowledge. This idea found its way into textbooks, museums, and classrooms across the world, and over time, it became accepted as truth. But the absence of African history was never the result of reality. It was the result of erasure. Many African societies recorded their knowledge differently. Knowledge was recorded through manuscripts, architecture, trade records, and oral traditions passed with precision across generations. When colonial rule took hold, much of this knowledge was dismissed, destroyed, or deliberately ignored. To understand Africa before colonization, we must first unlearn what we were taught. We must listen to what remains. Imagine a city at the edge of the Sahara, dust rising from the camel caravans, the sound of scholars debating beneath mud brick walls. This was Timbuktu. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Timbuktu was one of the most important intellectual centers in the world. It was home to universities, libraries, and thousands of manuscripts covering law, astronomy, medicine, mathematics, and philosophy. Students traveled from across West Africa and beyond to study here. Knowledge was not only preserved, it was valued, traded, and expanded. Today, over 300,000 manuscripts still survive, many protected by families who hid them through centuries of conflict and colonization. UNESCO recognizes Timbuktu as a center of global learning, not folklore, but documented history. This was not an isolated case. It was part of a wider intellectual world that existed across the continent. Now, turn east to the coast. Along the Indian Ocean, African cities rose with coral stone walls and carved doorways. One such city was Kilwa. Another was Mombasa. Zanzibar also flourished, and Sofala was a key port. These were Swahili city-states, African, cosmopolitan, and deeply connected to the wider world. From these ports, African traders exchanged gold, ivory, iron, and textiles with merchants from Arabia, Persia, India, and China. Chinese porcelain has been found in African ruins. African gold reached markets thousands of miles away. These cities minted their own coins. These cities built mosques and palaces and governed themselves through complex political systems. Far inland, beyond the coast and the desert, stone rose from the earth. The greatest of these was Great Zimbabwe. Massive walls were built without mortar. Towers rose from the granite blocks. The entire city was constructed with engineering precision. For centuries, European observers refused to believe Africans built it. They attributed it to Phoenicians, Arabs, and but the people who lived there. But archaeology tells a different story. Great Zimbabwe was the center of a powerful kingdom that controlled gold production and trade routes linking the interior of southern Africa to the Indian Ocean coast. Its wealth came from African labor, African organization, and African innovation. The stone walls still stand today, silent but undeniable. By the late 15th century, new ships began arriving on African shores. They first arrived as traders. Then they became partners. Finally, they arrived as powers. Trade slowly gave way to control. Influence hardened into domination. And African histories began to be rewritten through foreign eyes. Maps were redrawn by new rulers. Kingdoms were renamed or erased entirely. Their stories were simplified into stereotypes. What followed was not the beginning of African history. This was the interruption of it. Africa's past was never empty. It was layered, complex, and deeply human. These stories were not lost. They were buried. Here, at Of Ash and Palm, we will continue uncovering them, empire by empire, kingdom by kingdom, story by story. Because history does not begin when outsiders arrive. It begins where people live, build, think, and remember. And this is only the beginning.